Bonjour, je suis Alex Mustard, and I'm afraid I'm going to do the rest of this presentation in English. It is better for all of us, I can assure you. I was very honored to be asked to judge your category Epave, or Rex as we call them, and I thought that the standard of all the images were really nice, and I really enjoyed to see them all. Vivien asked me to select a top 5, but because I thought I would record this as a video, I've actually selected a top 10 with a particular emphasis on the order of the top 5. But in fact, I put all of these in an order. So I'm going to bring up the slideshow now and run through the pictures. But before I do, I will just talk a little bit about how I judged the pictures. The first thing that I did was I downloaded all the photos from the web forum. I think it's very difficult to evaluate and compare pictures unless you can see them next to each other. So the first job was to get all the pictures in one folder and then start to eliminate the ones that I didn't think had a chance to be in the top 5. And then as the collection got more concentrated, it was easier to compare them. I think when you look at them in the forum or in a slideshow of 30 images, so when you go through those images, you see it's hard to compare them. You forget exactly how good you rate an image. So for me, it's always better to get them on the computer and delete them down before judging. I think when you just look at them on the forum and you go, okay, that is my favorite, you often can forget and you maybe change your mind when you compare them side by side. So I'm now going to slide over to my slideshow, which should be on that button there. And now I'm down the bottom of the picture and that looks like it's working well. So I'm going to show you 10 pictures in ascending order. So this was the 10th picture that I chose. This picture here is obviously taken in freshwater, I presume in France. Certainly when I was a teenager visiting France, we were always very jealous of the French teenagers that were, you know, from a young age could ride these little motorbikes. We weren't very complimentary about these very tiny motors, but we were very jealous of them at the same time. We used to call this type of motorbike get off and milk it, which is kind of referring to the fact that they weren't even riding a horse, they were riding a cow. But we were still very jealous. Anyway, that's enough personal. Anyway, I like this picture because it shows that maybe you don't have to travel to the most amazing wreck, the most exciting shipwreck in the world to create a really memorable wreck shot. It's a simple image taken without flash. The picture would have more impact if converted in black and white. But in black and white, you maybe would struggle to think that it's underwater. So if this picture had some fish in it, I would definitely convert it in black and white. But I think as a picture without any obvious underwater life, I think in black and white, this picture, you maybe wouldn't even know it was underwater. So I think it's processed in a nice way. For this, plenty of impact and a feeling of being underwater and a cool and interesting subject that would always, you know, capture the interest of anyone looking at it. I think that the other way you could add a feeling of being underwater to this shot would be to include a diver or something. Even if they were in the distance, it would help this picture to feel a little bit more underwater. Okay, the 9th picture is definitely underwater in the ocean. And this is really a grand scene. It's a big area to shoot and has a fantastic school of these silverfish, I can't see what they are, over the structure of the wreck. And I really like this element of the picture. I think, though, that there could be more from this opportunity. I don't know the wreck. I'm guessing it's a Mediterranean wreck, but I can't be sure. I can't tell, really. But I would like to see a bit more of the ship. So with these silvery fish, you don't need to necessarily to shoot them up towards the surface. Normally in underwater photography, we want to shoot up so we get the contrast of the subject matter against the surface. But here, perhaps coming around the other side of this structure, shooting down on this structure, you would still get the contrast from the silvery fish reflecting the flash. But then you could begin to tell more of the story of the wreck, having some wreckage behind it. So this picture for me is just a little bit lacking a story of the shipwreck. And I think also I would like a little bit more flash, a little bit more organization from the fish on the wreck, so they really capture the light and have a punch in the composition. But the idea is very nice, and this looks to me like a challenging image to have taken. So it's impressed me a lot for that reason. Next, we travel to the Red Sea and to the brothers, I guess, for this wreck shot. And this wreck shot is a explosion of color and energy, which I really love. All these beautiful soft corals and the orange anthias fish, they look great in the picture. But for me, there's probably not quite enough wreck in this shot. Although, of course, the whole area is a wreck. Apart from the circle, I think that a member of the public wouldn't understand that this is a shipwreck. And I think with a small changes in composition, you could get much more of the story of the shipwreck into this picture. So I love how it's lit. I love the composition. I mean, sorry, the colors. But I would like a bit more in the composition. So first of all, the position of the wreck in the frame is not, or the foreground is not quite right. There's a bit of wasted space on the side of the frame that I'm on now. So I think the framing of this could have been better, but I would have come more above this scene to get more of the back of the wreck. What's at the top of the frame, where I can't point the right way, there on that side. I think you could have brought more of the wreck into the background of the picture, just as a silhouette, just as a distant element. It would have really helped the communication of what you're looking at for the viewer. So the foreground is fantastic, but with a little bit more attention to the background, I think this picture could have told a really fascinating story. But it's still really nice. It's a really nice wreck shot. This shot here is really classic. It's very nicely done. Again, in the Red Sea, but now on, I think is the barge wreck in near to Fury Shoal, maybe Master Alam. Anyway, doesn't matter which is the wreck. I like this picture a lot. I'm just now thinking it might be the bow of the Dunraven. Anyway, let's not get distracted by the wreck. It's a classic composition. You have a really strong bow, which is dominating the frame, and then the diver in the background creating a nice depth in the composition, a feeling of exploration. You have the reef as well on the background, which tells more of the story of how this wreck got there. For me as a viewer of this wreck, I'm straight away told that, okay, this ship crashed in the reef, is fallen down, and now a diver is exploring it. So it's a very complete and satisfying story for me, which I really like. And compositionally is very strong. I think the bow and the diver are well balanced in the frame, and this makes the picture appealing to me. The only things that I don't like about this picture, and is really nothing to do with the photography, is I don't think it's the most attractive bow. You know, with this hard coral, with the far coral and things, it's nothing really exciting. It could do with a few fish or a little bit more color or something in this area to really highlight the picture. There's nothing wrong with this shot, but it just needs, I think, a little sparkle of interest on that bow, where there is a surgeon fish, which often live on these bows, coming in towards the camera or something like that. I think those things that would help this picture. And just for me, is something for the photographer to consider. I would prefer this picture flipped the other way around, so reversed, I guess, from reality. I think with a wreck shot like this, I want to go first of all to the bow and then see the diver. And we typically read the picture from left to right. And here I kind of, if I read this picture in the normal way that a Western person looks at a picture, I kind of discover the diver before the wreck. And I think this picture flipped the other way would allow me to see the wreck, and then the diver is casting more of a supporting role in the composition. And this was my 6th place image now, also in the Red Sea. This one here is in the hold of the Thistlegorm. This vehicle is a Fordson WOT 3A. WOT is WOT. It stands for War Office Truck. It's not a very exciting name. Or transport, actually. War Office Transport number 3 is it's a British Second World War vehicle in the lower hold of the Thistlegorm, and this is on the starboard side of the lower level of hold number 2 on Thistlegorm. I'm a big Thistlegorm geek, so I can tell you exactly where this truck is and what it is. What I like about this shot very much is the overall composition of the photographer getting both the truck, but importantly, the blue water looking down through hold 3, and also to the opening at the behind the bridge on the top right of the picture. Both of those add some depth to the image. Personally, though, I think I would like a little bit more light in this image, especially on the top of the truck. I think that the front of the truck, the front by the radiator, is well lit, but the cab of the truck is starting to fade a lot into darkness. And I think a little bit more care with strobe positioning, you could have had more light onto the cab, and that would have meant that the center of this picture was brighter and more interesting. The light in this picture is at the bottom and at the top of the frame, and the center part of the frame for me is a bit disappointing because it's dark. Can also do some work in processing as well, of course. I would like maybe a little bit more light coming also from those openings. It often requires quite a long exposure to get that blue light to really come through in this very dark area of the wreck. But I think with a little bit better strobe positioning, a little bit more ambient light coming through there, this picture would be really fantastic and could have even been the overall winner. As it is just those little technical flaws or processing flaws as well that held this picture outside the top 5. So hopefully now we have our picture in the 5th place. And in 5th place is this fantastic shot in a underground mine, I'm guessing, of an old piece of mining machinery that is a great piece of wreckage. I think this must have been a challenging dive, probably cold, probably difficult diving. And the photo is really great. I love how the color contrast between the wreckage and the surroundings, with the warm colors on the wreckage and the blue cold colors behind, is a great contrast in the picture. The lighting is beautiful and clean and even on the subject, and I really like how the diver is helping to light up with the remote strobe the wall of this huge cave, this huge mine behind this in the background, which really helps, and it's got a fantastic feeling of exploration. If I had any criticism of this collection, is few of the pictures had a feeling of really exploration. And I think this picture really had that. My only criticism of this picture was that it's not the most exciting piece of wreckage. I think if this was a slightly more interesting artifact, I think this picture could have been really high. It's nice, but, we have above this, aeroplanes and beautiful ships, and in a wreck category, they unfortunately are more likely to be successful than a relatively small artifact or object that's not so exciting visually. So there's nothing at all that I would criticize photographically in this picture. I really like all of it, and it would have finished higher. I think if this was just purely a wide angle competition, I think this picture might have been right at the top. But as a wreck picture, it was a little bit lower, if that makes sense. Okay, 4th place in this category is a really great classic wreck image. I'm guessing this is the Hilma hooker in Bonaire. I've never been to Bonaire, but I've seen so many pictures from the wreck. I feel I know it, and I'm guessing it's that wreck. It looks so familiar. It's definitely Caribbean sponges. What I really like about this picture is, first of all, the angle that the photographer has captured it from. Framing this subject matter against the bright sun of the surface has created a great contrast. And that gives the image lots and lots of impact, which I really like. Even the dark areas of the wreck, they bounce out of the picture. And then where the strobes are lighting, you get color and detail. And the whole feeling is really fantastic. I like the composition. You see straight away this beautiful propeller, but also the contrast between the propeller shape and the shape of the sponges is very attractive to my eye. So I really like everything in this frame. My only suggestion for this shot was that it's a little bit all foreground in this picture. And I think if you had been able to include some element behind the wreck, maybe a passing school of fish or a scuba diver framed in one of the gaps in the shapes and structure, that would really complete this image. You have done everything right, and maybe just having another element in the picture would have just given a layer and more depth in the composition that would really have completed this picture for me beautifully. But it's a very, very nice wreck shot. Okay, third place is this picture here. I'm attracted straight away to this picture because of the subject matter. I like, any well intact aeroplane is always an interesting subject to see photographed. I think that the photographer's use of the off-camera lighting, both in the cockpit of the aeroplane and also the strong diver's torch, is really impressive. And actually, probably is something that the photographer doesn't like. But I really like this dust in the bottom left corner of the picture. Probably the photographer is annoyed with themselves for stirring it up as they swam past, or annoyed that a buddy stirred up this sediment. But for me, it adds a little bit of feeling to the feeling of the crash. So I like it. It's the hot color of the light. It feels almost like fire. And this is smoke, and it feels like, oh wow, this plane has just crashed. Of course, it crashed 80 years ago now, I'm sure. So the effect of using the off-camera strobe pointing up at the front of the plane, and also the off-camera strobe inside the cockpit with the light of the dive, it makes for a very interesting image of a really strong subject. I would crop this picture a little bit. I think that the content on the side of the frame that I'm on your screen is a little bit wasted. And actually, where I put my hand here, I think if you cropped about where my hand is upwards, you would have a more dynamic composition with the fuselage of the plane coming more across the diagonal of the picture. And also, although it's nice to see all that wing, the wing above my head, it unbalances the composition. And I think if you lost a section off this side of the picture, you would have a stronger image as a result. Would be all content, all interest. And it's very nice. Okay, second place in the Rex category is this picture, another Mediterranean shot. And this is a very, very nice wreck picture. I really, really like the composition of this, framing the old wheel of the ship with the Gorgonians around the side is really nice. I think that this picture is lit with just a single strobe, which has a very nice effect on this. And I think is underused in wide angle photography, single strobe, to create this feeling of the dark frame, because there's no light in the normal position here, is just one strobe in the top. And so you get a dark frame from the Gorgonians, and then it focuses you, gives a very three-dimensional effect as it draws your eye to the main subject, which is the wheel. And I think the symmetry of the wheel, it works very well with this symmetrical composition. So it's a very, very nice shot. I think that the pose of the diver is less appealing to me. And I think that this picture, I have to mention quickly, the little fish, the little wrasse is very nice pose. It's just the sort of accent that I like in a wide angle shot, where it gives a feeling of this was the moment to take the picture. So I really like the little fish. The diver is fine, but they're not elegantly posed. They don't feel like they're exploring the wreck. They feel like they're just looking at the camera. So I would prefer either a more distant diver with a torch coming in to explore the wreck, or if the diver is close, I would like them very elegantly posed around the wreck, maybe swimming across the frame, but looking towards the wheel, not looking towards the camera. Here, for me, they look too much towards the camera. These are very small points, and that's why this picture was right at the top, but not quite the winner. I really liked so much about this picture, but for me, a slightly better diver pose. And there is a good chance that the photographer in this series of pictures has some shots that maybe fit more what I'm looking for. but it's still very nice. But the winner of the wreck competition is this picture here, which is, I thought was a very original and fresh wreck photograph. But my attraction to it is really the color combination of the black and whites and blues in this picture, where you have the squares of the bathroom flooring. And I'm presuming that this is the wreck of maybe a liveaboard or something like that that sunk in the Red Sea. The fish are from the Red Sea. I can see a white-bellied damselfish and the sergeant majors and that sort of thing. But I really like this combination. This feels to me a very original wreck shot. And I think particularly for me as a judge, somebody that sees a lot of wreck pictures, seeing something with such an original and fresh feeling works really well to me. So for me, this picture is all about squares and stripes, and that limited color palette of whites and blacks with a bit of blue that runs through all of that subject matter. Plus you have this feeling of wreckage all around, so you understand where the squares come from, that, you know, they're a bathroom or something on an old shipwreck. Works really well to me. So I felt it was a very original and interesting wreck picture. It's a picture that the longer you look at it, the more you find to explore. You start to see those big pipes in the backgrounds and ropes and other objects. So there's a lot to captivate the mind. And for me, that all works really, really nicely. It's a very complete frame, action all the way through the picture. And for me, a very deserving winner. That also is one of the most original wreck shots that I've seen for a while. So hopefully that was interesting. I'm getting a warning that my audio is off. So please, I hope that is recorded, otherwise I'll be doing it again. And thank you for asking me to judge.